I'm Sarah Pickett, 71, and on Mother's Day 2026, my daughter sent a group text. I'll quote exactly. "We picked the restaurant and you're covering all 12 of us like always." I read it twice. Then I smiled. Alone in the kitchen of the house my husband Joseph and I bought in 1981. I texted back 4 words. "Enjoy, I'm flying Italy." Hannah replied, "Mom, don't be dramatic." Tyler sent an eye roll. My daughter-in-law, Whitney, sent a thumbs down. They thought I was bluffing. What none of them had bothered to ask in 24 years was that the restaurant they had just booked already knew my name. By the time the waiter brought them the check, every diner in that room would know it too. Welcome back to Alpha Mom Stories. It was 7:48 on Saturday morning, May 11th, 2026. I was pouring coffee black, no sugar, the way Joseph used to. The light came through the kitchen window at the angle it always did on May mornings. The dogwoods outside were just past peak. My phone buzzed then again, then a third time. Pickett family group, the chat I had been quiet in for 6 weeks. Hannah's message, "We picked the restaurant and you're covering all 12 of us like always." Tyler's 30 seconds later. "La Cucina de Vita, 6:30 tomorrow. Whitney already booked the back room. Then Whitney, mother dear, dress 1 level up. It's an elevated environment." I set the phone face down on the counter. I watched my hands. They weren't shaking. I remembered last year's Mother's Day. Olive Oak, Greg's brother-in-law's place. $4,100 on my card. Bad lasagna. Nobody asked how I was doing. 2 years ago, Grove Park and Buffet, $2,800. The same. I remembered standing at the same sink at midnight on June 14th, 2022, my 68th birthday, eating a slice of supermarket cake I had bought for myself because no one had remembered. In 38 years of motherhood, I have eaten my own birthday cake standing at this kitchen sink twice. I picked up the phone, typed 4 words. "Enjoy. I'm flying Italy." Hannah replied within 7 seconds. "Mom, don't be dramatic." Tyler sent the eye roll. Whitney sent the thumbs down. Greg's sister Lindsay sent the laughing emoji. I muted the chat. Then I walked to the back of the house to Joseph's office. I had been sorting it for 3 weeks and had been avoiding the desk. The afternoon light hit a folder on his desk labeled in his handwriting. "KUA files." I sat down in his chair and began. I should tell you about Dr. Lynn first. September 2025, 8 months before Mother's Day. I was in the produce aisle at Engels Market on Hendersonville Road when my left arm went cold and the world tilted 6 degrees to the right. Mission Hospital, 3 days of mild myocardial infarction, the kind that lets you off with a warning. On the morning of discharge, Dr. David Lynn sat at the foot of my bed with my chart in his lap. Late 50s kind eyes a pen he kept clicking once and then setting down. "Mrs. Pickett, your numbers are very good. Cholesterol, low pressure, managed stress markers. These are not good. I'll work on it." He clicked the pen, set it down. "May I ask you something that isn't medical?" "Yes. You feed everyone. I read your file. 6 grandchildren, 2 children, a husband for 43 years. You ran a restaurant for 16 years before that." 13. He nodded. "When did someone last feed you?" I didn't answer. I looked out the window. There was a maple tree across the parking lot just starting to turn. He stood up. He buttoned his white coat slowly. "I'm not your priest, Mrs. Pickett. I'm your cardiologist. But the body remembers what the mouth won't say. So I'll ask one more time. When do you live?" I drove myself home that afternoon. I did not tell Hannah I had been in the hospital. I did not tell Tyler at first. He found out 2 months later. Anyway, a radiology colleague at Mission had pulled my chart for a routine cardiac review and mentioned my name in the break room. Tyler called once. I told him I had not wanted to worry anyone. He did not call again. I made myself a poached egg on toast and sat at the kitchen table where I had eaten alone for 5 years. 3 days later, I picked up the phone and called a number I had not dialed in 22 months. Antonio Russo, the chef who had once been my apprentice. "Antonio," I said, "if the offer still stands, I would like to talk." The folder on Joseph's desk was 37 years old, October 1989. We had been married 11 years. Hannah was 7. Tyler was 3. Joseph and I had 2 small restaurants, Pick-a-Kick on Lexington Tomato and Vine on Merriam, and $4,000 in a savings account in my name. Joseph wanted a third, a real one. White tablecloths, a wine list, a name that meant something in Italian. The banker at NCB on Patton Avenue laughed at me. I was wearing a beige skirt and a blouse my mother had ironed. He looked at Joseph, not at me. "Your wife," he said on the lease. Joseph leaned forward. "My wife will be the Lee of record. I will be the guarantor." "Why?" "Because she's the one who can read the books." We got the loan 3 weeks later. $43,000 at 12% interest. The week we signed, a brown paper package arrived from my mother in Eagle Rock, Tennessee. Inside was a red apron she had hand-stitched with my initials, embroidered at the chest and cream thread SP. There was a card folded inside the pocket, my mother's handwriting careful and slanted. "Don't apologize for taking up the room." On opening night, December 14th, 1989. Joseph cried in the walk-in cooler. I brought him an espresso in a small white cup. He held my wrist with one hand and the cup with the other. "This is yours, Sarah." "Ours, no yours." He had spent the afternoon inventing a dish. Squid ink talateel with North Carolina blue crab and brown butter. He named it on the menu in pen without asking me. "Pasta alla Pickett." I held my mother's apron in my lap on Joseph's office floor and remembered the espresso, and the apron was still there folded, waiting. Hannah was 14 in March 1996. She had a friend named Madison Pratt. Madison's father was the new partner at a brokerage in Charlotte. They had just moved into a glass-walled house on Town Mountain Road with a wine cellar her father showed people on tours. Hannah brought Madison home without warning on a Saturday afternoon. I was making sauce. 22 pounds of Roma tomatoes I had bought at the farmer's market that morning simmering on the stove. The whole house smelled of garlic and basil and 3 hours of work. Madison walked through the door, sniffed once, smiled politely, said hello. The next Monday at school, Madison said it loud enough for 3 other girls to hear. "Hannah lives above a sauce factory." Hannah came home that afternoon and cried in the upstairs bathroom for 40 minutes. I stood outside the door. I knocked once. "Honey, just leave it, Mom. Please." I backed away. I remembered being 14. I remembered being mortified by my own mother, by her loud laugh in church, by her dresses from Belloc. I had survived it. Hannah would survive Madison. I let her become someone else. She went to UNC Chapel Hill in the fall of 1999. By her sophomore year, she was telling her roommates I was in hospitality. By graduation, retired from food service. She married Greg Bell in 2008 at a country club in Charlotte and dropped Pick-a-Kick from her name on the marriage license without telling me. I sat in the 3rd row at her wedding in a navy dress. Joseph was beside me. He squeezed my hand once during the vows. He did not let go. Sitting on his office floor 30 years later, I understood what I'd given Hannah. I had given her the right to invent herself. The question was whether she would ever remember that the right was a gift. Tyler was 32 in May 2018 when he brought Whitney Harrington home for the first time. Whitney was 29, blonde polite with the small, careful gestures of a girl raised by a country club. Her mother Beatrice came with her. That was a sentence I should have read more carefully when Tyler said it. I cooked dosobuco. Joseph poured a Chianti Classicalico from a producer and Grav met in 1996. The conversation was pleasant. Beatrice asked about the house, about the garden, about the framed photograph in the dining room. A picture of Joseph and me in front of a small storefront in 1989. "Was that your first business?" she said. "Our third," I said, "but the first one with a real kitchen." She smiled. She did not ask anything else. After dinner, Tyler walked them out to the car. The hallway was dark. I was carrying plates to the sink. The window above the sink was open, and the night air carried Beatrice's voice across the side yard, low and confidential. "Your mother used to make our family pasta when we summered here." "Quite charming." Tyler said nothing. I rinsed the plate I was holding. I rinsed it for longer than it needed. Whitney and Tyler married in October 2019 at Biltmore Forest Country Club. I sat at table 14 near the kitchen doors. Whitney's family was at table 1. Over the next 5 years, the Christmas invitations grew shorter. The birthday parties got further away, and the videos of Emma and Maddie arrived in my phone weeks late. What I never told Tyler, what I will never tell him, is that I knew. From the night I heard his mother-in-law's voice through the kitchen window, I knew the whole time. And I let him become someone else too. That was the past. This is May 10th, 2026. The Saturday morning of the brunch 28 hours before Mother's Day. Whitney's house in Biltmore Forest sat on 3/4 of an acre behind a low stone wall. Hydrangeas, a blue front door, the kind of house that meant something to the people who knew what it cost. She had invited 8 women from her junior league circle. I arrived at 11. I wore a navy linen dress and the pearl earrings Joseph had given me for our 40th anniversary. Whitney introduced me at the table. "This is Tyler's mom. She used to be in the restaurant world." Past tense was. The other women smiled. Catherine Green, a woman in her 50s, whose mother Eileen had eaten at La Cuina de Vida the year it opened, looked at me twice, looked away. Her mouth open, slightly closed. I ate quietly. I answered questions in 1 or 2 words. I let the mimosas pour. Around 12:15, the conversation turned to a charity gala Whitney was chairing, then to a restaurant in Charleston she had eaten at the week before. Then she lifted her glass and set it, smiling with the warmth that her circle confused for affection. "Mother dear, you've never even eaten somewhere this nice." Catherine Green looked down at her plate. I held the stem of my water glass. I felt the cool of it against my finger. "You'd be surprised what I've eaten, dear." I said it lightly. Whitney laughed. She did not hear the threat in it. None of them did except Catherine, who closed her napkin and stood, said she had forgotten an appointment and left. I drove home at 12:45. In the car, I opened the Lufthansa app on my phone. Confirmation: 4F9KX2, Asheville to Charlotte. Then the Lufthansa overnight, from Charlotte to Frankfurt, then Catania by morning. Sunday evening, May 12th, 30 hours away. I should tell you about the offer Antonio made 3 weeks before Mother's Day. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea. My phone rang from a Charleston number. I almost didn't answer. "Zia Sarah." His voice still carried Monica in it after 30 years. "Antonio. I'm sorry to call. I have news. May I drive up Tuesday?" He drove up. He came with a folder. He had been planning to expand a second location in Charleston on King Street. 18 seats tasting menu only. James Beard affiliated Culinary Institute partnership to pledge against the build. He needed full equity in the original Asheville location. He laid the offer on my kitchen table, $400,000 for my 25%. The restaurant valued at $16.4 million on EBITDA and brand premium. "I would like the closing to come after Mother's Day," he said out of respect. "Why Mother's Day?" "You'll know when you're ready to tell me." I poured him a second cup of tea. "Sarah Pickett room stays. I asked in the contract forever. Non-negotiable on my side." He drank his tea. Then he set the cup down and said the other thing. James Beard Foundation Who's Who. Class of 2026 Lifetime Achievement. Press release May 14th. They were going to call you Tuesday. I sat very still. "Did you know I said I nominated you in 2023? He smiled, the first smile I had seen on his face in 2 years. "One more thing. Come to Monica for 3 months. Teach with me. The Institute is real. Students from 12 countries. Joseph would have wanted you to come home." I said yes to all of it to Monica. Yes. After Antonio left, I sat at the kitchen table for 2 hours. Then I opened my laptop. I went to the Lufthansa website. I started looking at dates. The calendar showed me Sunday, May 12th, 2026 Mother's Day. I stared at it for nearly a minute. I clicked. I texted Antonio at 6 p.m. "What if I land Tuesday morning?" He answered in 90 seconds. "I'll pick you up." "Why Tuesday?" I waited a long moment before I typed back. "Mother's Day timing. They'll book a dinner." "I want to not be there." I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear 3 times. "Then where will they book Asheville?" I typed. "Probably your room. The dots vanished. Came back. Vanished again. Zia let me handle the dinner. What does that mean? It means I'll be there as chef as your husband's nephew. Trust me. I closed the laptop. I sat on the porch as the light went red over the mountains. Then I drove to Riverside Cemetery. Joseph's grave was at the end of a long row of dogwoods that he would have liked. I sat on the bench beside the headstone for 90 minutes. I did not cry. "It's time, Jeppy," I said out loud at the end of the 90 minutes. "I'm going home." When I walked back to the car, the moon was up. The cemetery gate was closed but unlocked. I let myself out. I had spent 46 years filling tables for other people. It was time to leave one. I drove home. Clear as throat. I poured a small glass of grappa Joseph had brought back from Sicily in 2014. I drank it slowly. The kitchen was very quiet. I want to pause here. If you're a mother who has done the math every Christmas, you hosted every wedding you funded, every grandchild's birthday cake you baked at 5 a.m, and the math doesn't match what you got back, just leave one word in the comments. Math. That's it. One word. I'll read everyone. Now, let me tell you what happened in the attic of this house 6 weeks ago. Caleb is my grandson, Hannah's only child. 17 years old, 6 feet, 152,000 followers on TikTok. Most of them earned by impressions of his mother that he believes are loving and that Hannah believes are flattering. He came up to Asheville on spring break, March 28th, the weekend his mother had a meeting in Charlotte. She could not move. Hannah's exact words in the text she sent me, "Add it to your Mother's Day cred." He'll be on his phone the whole time. He arrived at 7 on a Friday night with a duffel bag and an iPhone 17. On Saturday morning while I was at the grocery store on Merrim, he opened the attic. I knew the dust on the stair carpet was disturbed. The hatch handle had been turned. The folded blanket I keep on the top step was in a different place. He had found the cedarwood box. Inside the box, my mother's red apron wrapped in tissue paper. A leather album of photographs from 1989 through 1996. A stack of magazine clippings and the single black and white photograph of me at the James Beard House on East 12th Street in October 1991, taken by a severe staff photographer signed across the bottom in fountain pen. To Sarah, keep cooking. JB. Caleb sat in the attic for 23 minutes. I know because the dust pattern showed me where he had sat, and the granola bar wrapper at his feet was from the kitchen counter at exactly 9:11 a.m. by the time stamp on the security camera at the back door. He came down. He did not say a word about what he had found. He did not film it. He went to his room and wrote a single line in his notes app. "Don't post the joke about Grandma." Sunday morning, March 29th, the day Caleb went back to Charlotte. He came downstairs in the same hoodie he had worn the day before. He sat at the kitchen table. He did not look at me directly. I made blueberry pancakes. I poured warm syrup into a small white pitcher. I set the pitcher down between us. "Sleep okay?" I asked. "Yeah." A long pause. "Grandma?" "Yes, honey." "Did you ever meet anyone famous?" I smiled. I poured the syrup over my own pancakes. A few people here and there who I cut a small triangle and ate it. A chef in New York once. He was kind to me. Caleb watched my hands. "What was his name?" "You wouldn't know it, sweetheart." He looked at me then. His eyes are Joseph's eyes, almost black at the iris, very still. "I think I would, actually." We sat for 2 seconds in absolute silence. Then I poured him more syrup. His mother picked him up at 11 o'clock. Hannah was on her phone the whole driveway visit. She hugged me without focus. Caleb got into the passenger seat. I watched him through the windshield. He did not open his phone the entire time I could see them. That night, alone in his room in Charlotte, he wrote a second line in his notes app, which I would only see 7 weeks later when he showed it to me at the airport in Katana. The line was, "Grandma is somebody." It was the first time in 24 years that anyone in my family had written that sentence about me. He was the first one in 24 years to ask the right question. This is the part I have been afraid to tell you. 3 weeks before Mother's Day. April 21st, I was sorting Joseph's office to prepare for the move to Sicily. The recipe book my grandmother, Ada Mae Pickett's 1948 leather cover, brittle at the spine, had been sitting on Joseph's desk untouched since 2020. I picked it up. I opened it to page 47, where my grandmother had written her Sugo de Carne in slanted blue ink. Between page 47 and page 48, there was a sheet of cream-colored letter paper folded in 3. Joseph's handwriting, Italian, dated March 14th, 2020, 11 days before he died at the stove of La Cucina de Vita of a heart attack. So fast, Antonio said he never set down the wooden spoon. I sat down on his office floor. I translated it slowly. I had learned Italian over 43 years of marriage. Slowly enough that even now I read it the way you read a prayer. Mia. Sarah, if you are reading this, I went first. I hope it was quick. Listen to me. The children are grown. They do not know who you are anymore. Maybe they never asked. Do not waste another decade waiting for them to ask. Go to Morica. The house on Via del Carmen, number 12. My cousin Salvatore holds the keys. It is small. There is a lemon tree in the courtyard. It is yours. Antonio will know what to do with the restaurant. Trust him. He is family in a way that Hannah and Tyler chose not to be. And Mia wear the apron. Your mother sent it for a reason. Do not apologize for taking up the room. I will see you at the table. G. I sat on the floor of Joseph's office for 47 minutes. I did not cry. Then I folded the letter into my wallet. I called Antonio that night. I said yes to all of it. 2 weeks before Mother's Day, Hannah drove up from Charlotte alone on a Wednesday evening. Greg was working. Caleb had a project. She came at 6. I made a Buco Joseph's recipe, the one I had taught in the spring of 1993. I poured a Montepulciano. I lit 2 candles. She arrived at 7:15 in a charcoal pantsuit. She kissed my cheek without looking at my face. We sat down at the dining room table. She scrolled her phone with one hand and lifted her fork with the other. I waited until she had taken 3 bites. Hannah, I said, do you remember the restaurant? She looked up briefly. Which one, Mom? You worked at like 3 different places when we were kids. Lucina de Vita. She squinted, then smiled. Oh, that fancy one Whitney likes. I think Dad mentioned something once. Why? I did not answer immediately. I refilled her wine. No reason. I was just thinking about your father. She put her fork down. She leaned forward with the soft expression she used when she was about to ask for something. Mom, quick thing. Can I borrow $14,000? Caleb needs a car for college applications. And Greg's bonus is short this year. I looked at her for a long moment. I'll think about it. She left at 9:30. She kissed me on the cheek again. She did not see the suitcase that had been packed in my bedroom for 6 days. That night, I wrote a check for $14,000 to Caleb directly. I mailed it to him at his school in Charlotte with a note that read, "For your future, tell your mother whatever you choose." 1 week before Mother's Day, Tyler called me at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. The call was short. He did not preamble. Mom, Mother's Day. Whitney's organized everything. La Cucina de Vita 6. 30. 12 of us. We need the card on file. Confirmed my card. You always say it's easier. I waited 2 beats, Tyler. Why this restaurant? Whitney wanted somewhere with prestige. She's bringing her parents. I felt my hand still on the kitchen counter. Her father, Harrison. Yeah, both of them. Why no reason? Tell Whitney to enjoy. He hesitated. There was a small thing in my voice he was old enough to recognize. He did not pursue it. Love you, Mom. I know, honey. I hung up. I called Antonio. Harrison Harrington will be there Sunday night. Whitney's father. There was a long silence on Antonio's end. Joseph's Harrison, he said. The one Joseph fed for free in 1995. The same longer silence. Then, Zia, the universe has a sense of timing. Antonio, they've also ordered pasta. A la Pickett. Whitney told Tyler she wants something with personality. 3 orders or 4, at least 4. Whitney is bringing her mother. Antonio breezed in once. I'll plate them myself. I sat at the kitchen counter for a few minutes after we hung up. I looked at the cookbook on the counter. I looked at the wedding photograph above the stove. Joseph in a brown corduroy jacket on the lawn of my parents' farm the summer of 1978. You arranged this, didn't you? I said to him out loud. The kitchen did not answer, but the sun had moved 1 foot west on the linoleum floor. Friday evening, May 9th, 2 days before Mother's Day, Whitney called me at 6:15. "Mother dear, just confirming you're attending Sunday." "Yes, the reservation is under Harrington Pickett." Of course, it was the only direct lie I told the entire week. It cost me nothing. "Wonderful. Please dress 1 level up. The room we booked is, well, it's not for everyone. It's called the Sarah Pickett Room, the private dining room at the back." "Quite elegant." I held the phone away from my ear for a half second, then back is it. "Yes, apparently named after some original investor or something. Antonio Russo. The chef is quite famous now. We're lucky to get a Mother's Day booking." "How fortunate." She paused. She seemed to remember a script in her head. "Also, Mother dear, please don't bring up your hospital scare. It upsets the children." Tyler agrees. I felt the small muscle in my jaw flex once. "I won't bring it up. Have a lovely weekend, Whitney." I hung up. I walked to Joseph's office. I sat in the chair. I looked at the framed wedding photo on the shelf. Me at 24, him at 26. Both of us laughing too hard at something his Uncle S had said. I said to him quietly, "She doesn't know it's your name on the wall." The room was very still. Tomorrow night, I said she'll know. I closed the office door. I went to the bedroom. The Globetrotter suitcase Joseph and I had taken to Naples on our honeymoon in 1978 was open on the bed. I began to fold the apron in tissue paper. My hands did not shake. I packed the suitcase in 3 hours. The red apron tissue paper around it. The black and white photograph of James Beard and me at the James Beard house on East 12th Street in October 1991. The frame wrapped in a soft cotton cloth. My grandmother at May Pickett's recipe book, 1948. Joseph's letters still folded between page 47 and 48. The pearl earrings Joseph gave me on our 40th anniversary. 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, a single black cashmere cardigan, a small leather pouch with my passport and Antonio's Institute paperwork. I wrote the letter for the restaurant at 10 on Saturday night. I sealed both envelopes in red wax, the same wax I had used to seal letters during the first year of my marriage when Joseph was still finishing his prep work in Naples, and I wrote him every Sunday. I drove the letters to La Cucina di Vita at 9:15 Saturday night. Antonio was waiting at the back door. He took the envelopes with 2 hands. He kissed my cheek. "I'll read it the way you wrote it, Zaya. You'll read it the way I wrote it." "Antonio?" I drove home. I recorded the voicemail on my phone. 23 seconds. I listened once, saved it. At 10 p.m., I called Caleb. "Honey, tomorrow night, just watch. Grandma, where are you going to dinner with your great-grandmother?" There was a pause on his end. The kind of pause that meant he was trying to do math his mother had taught him not to do. "Okay," he said. "I'll watch." I hung up. The suitcase sat by the door. The apron was inside it. The apron remembered me. I want to pause here just for a second. If you have ever set a trap so quiet that the people inside it didn't know they had walked in, drop a single quiet emoji in the comments. The little muted speaker. You know the one. And if your own Mother's Day text just came through asking what restaurant share this video with one person, just one, you'll know who. Now, 6:25 p.m., Sunday morning, May 12th, 2026, 6:45 a.m. I made a small pot of coffee and read the front section of the New York Times. The James Beard announcement was not scheduled until Tuesday. At 8:03, Mother's Day text came through. "Tyler, happy Mother's Day. See you tonight." "Hannah, happy day, Mom." "Caleb, I love you." I answered only Caleb. "I love you too." Watch carefully. At 9, I drove to Riverside Cemetery. I sat with Joseph for 30 minutes. The dogwoods at his row were the same dogwoods that had been there when we buried him in March 2020. They had been small then. They were not small now. It's today, Yeppe. The bench was warm under my hand. The breeze moved through the cypress at the far end of the row. I drove home. I showered. I put on a navy linen dress, the pearl earrings, low-heeled shoes, and a wool jacket. I left my wedding ring on my left hand. I clipped the cardigan over my arm. At 6:45, the Uber pulled up. The driver. A young man named Trevor was polite. "Where to?" "Ma'am, Asheville Regional, please. Could you take the long way past Biltmore Avenue?" He drove. We passed La Cucina Dvita at 6:52. The valet stand was busy. Whitney's silver Range Rover was already there. I saw Tyler getting out of the passenger side. I saw Caleb's gray sedan pulling in. I did not stop. I did not slow. "Asheville Regional," I said again. Trevor nodded. He turned onto Hendersonville Road. We headed south. What happened in the restaurant, I did not see. I learned it from Caleb, from Antonio, from Maria, and from Captain Marco, who told me the longest version because he had been there since 1992 and remembered everything. 6:30 p.m. The Sarah Pickett room, wood-paneled 8 framed photographs along the walls, a long oak table set for 12. Whitney arrived first. Champagne silk dress, 2 tones lighter than gold. She had asked Marco at the front to save the head of the table for Mother. Marco said nothing. He had been told already. The party arrived in the next 12 minutes. Hannah and Greg Bell, Caleb, Tyler, and Whitney, their daughters Emma 5 and Maddie 8, Whitney's parents Harrison and Beatrice Harrington, Greg's sister Lindsay and her husband Mark Bell. No relation, same surname. A coincidence the family liked to point out at parties. And the empty chair at the head of the table, Tyler asked Marco directly, "Could you confirm is my mother's reservation here, Sarah Pickett?" Marco's pause was the smallest he could make. Mrs. Pickett's instructions have been confirmed. Tyler did not pursue it. Caleb sat at the chair closest to the wall. He took out his phone, opened the screen recorder, and began capturing the menu in his lap. At the top of the menu in pale gray italic above the appetizers was a single line, La Cucina Dvita in partnership with the Pickett family since 1989. Caleb read it once, looked up at the framed photographs on the wall. Looked at the one in the middle, did not say a word. The cocktails came out. 7:15 p.m. Whitney ordered the wine. 2 bottles of Brunello de Montalcino, 2019, $180 each. The tasting menu for adults. A separate kids menu for Emma and Maddie. By the time the bread plates were cleared, the table had committed to $2,300 before they had eaten anything. Whitney was holding court. The story was about a junior league gala scheduled for September. Beatrice listened politely. Harrison, 2 tables away with Walter Green at table 12, looked once at the back of his daughter's head and then looked away. Hannah leaned to Lindsay at one point. "Loud enough. Mom's not making it tonight." Big surprise. She's flying to Italy. Can you believe she's probably watching The Crown at home in slippers? Tyler chuckled. Caleb did not look up from his menu. Whitney was scanning the entree. "What is this pasta alla Pickett squid ink?" "Oh, that's adventurous. I'll have it." She laughed, a small laugh. Mother dear's name. How cute they kept it. 4 orders went in for the pasta. Alla Pickett. Whitney, Hannah, Beatrice, Lindsay. Harrison Harrington, 2 tables over, set his fork down. He leaned toward Walter Green and said quietly enough that only Walter would hear. "Walter, this is Sarah's place, Joseph's wife. The Sarah Pickett room. I haven't been in this room since Joseph was alive." Walter nodded. His own wife Eileen on his other side did not say anything yet. She was watching the back room. Eileen Green was 78 years old. She had eaten in this room on the 2nd Saturday in May every year since 1995. She had a memory like a steel trap. I was at Gate B12 Asheville Regional Airport, 7:30 p.m. The first leg to Charlotte boarding in 1 hour. The Lufthansa Transatlantic was waiting at Charlotte for the connection overnight to Frankfurt. The gate area was almost empty. 2 women with rolling suitcases, a young couple with a baby asleep in a sling. I sat by the window with my carry-on at my feet. The suitcase with the apron was already on the plane. I opened my phone for the last time before takeoff. The group chat was alive. Selfies. Whitney holding a glass of Brunello. Hannah making a kissing face. Tyler holding Emma. Caleb's chair empty in the corner of one frame. The photograph cropped to exclude the wall behind him. Hannah's post on Instagram public. Mother's Day vibes. #blessedfamily. 12 faces in the photograph. 1 empty chair at the head of the table behind them. I took off the pearl earrings. I put them in a small velvet pouch. I did not post anything. The woman in the next gate area, white-haired in a pink cardigan, looked up from her crossword. "Where are you going, hun, Cicely?" She smiled. Alone, I thought for a moment. Not anymore. She nodded as if she understood and went back to her puzzle. At 8:35, the gate agent called Group A. I stood. I walked the jet bridge alone. I sat in seat 14A. I watched the small blue lights of Asheville Regional drop away through the cabin window. In the restaurant I had left behind, the desserts were being cleared. A leather folio was being prepared. The captain was checking a wax-sealed envelope against the reservation. The trap was already set. 8 p.m. The desserts had been ordered. Coffees were being poured. The room had thinned slightly as some of the Mother's Day tables turned over to second sings. Whitney leaned across the table toward Hannah. The small, intimate lean she did when she wanted Beatrice to overhear and admire her tact. "It's a shame about your mother. She didn't want to come. But honestly, between us, has she ever really fit in places like this?" Hannah laughed. "Not really. She tried once when Tyler graduated med school. She wore the wrong shoes." Beatrice, who had been quiet most of the dinner, lifted her hand a small distance off the table. "Whitney, dear." Whitney waved her off. She was already laughing at her own next line. "Mother dear, you've never even eaten somewhere this nice." She delivered it like a punchline, the line she had used yesterday at brunch, the line she did not know she had been delivering for 8 years. Caleb stood up. He walked across the room to the south wall. He stopped in front of the framed black and white photograph in the center. He read the caption out loud quietly to himself. He came back to the table. He sat down. His cousin Maddie, 8 years old, pointed at the wall. "Daddy, who's that lady in the picture?" Tyler glanced over. "I don't know, honey. Probably an old chef." Caleb said it before he decided to. "That's Grandma with James Beard." October 1991. 4 seconds of complete silence. Then the door of the kitchen opened and Captain Marco walked across the room with a leather folio in his hands. Marco set the folio down at Whitney's place. "Mrs. Harrington Pickett, your bill and a letter." Whitney's hand, mid-motion to her wine glass, stopped. "A letter per Mrs. Pickett's instructions." Whitney opened the folio. The bill was clipped to the inside. $3,247.18. At the bottom of the bill, in printed text card on file, removed at customer request, May 10th. Whitney's mouth opened. The color in her face slid a quarter of a shade toward gray. "That's a mistake, Marco," with the steadiness of a man who had served 12,000 dinners and had been waiting 24 years for this one. "It is not, ma'am." Tyler reached across the table for the folio. "Marco, where's my mother en route to Italy, sir?" Tyler's hand stopped. Hannah sharply. "What do you mean, route, Marco?" "She left for the airport at 6:45. Her instructions are in the second envelope. I have been asked to read it aloud." Hannah read it aloud. Where Marco lifted the second envelope, the wax seal was unbroken. The cream-colored paper showed her handwriting through the back. "Here to this table with Chef Russo's permission, who was asked to be present." He looked over his shoulder. The door of the kitchen opened a second time. The 47 other diners in the main room, the conversation level at a soft murmur, went quiet by ones and twos. Harrison Harrington at table 12 set his coffee cup down very precisely on its saucer. Eileen Green folded her napkin and placed her hands flat against the linen on either side of it. The room was listening. Marco broke the seal with the side of his thumb. He unfolded the letter once. He looked at Whitney, then at Hannah, then at Tyler. He began to read. His voice was the voice of a man who had practiced once in the kitchen with Antonio that afternoon. Calm, carrying steady as a pouring on a bottle of olive oil. "Hannah, Tyler, and the people you have chosen to bring tonight." He paused. He read on. "I love you. I have for 44 and 40 years. This evening you booked a table in a room that bears my name. You ordered a dish that bears my name. You sat in chairs my husband refinished by hand in 1991. You drank from glasses I selected on a buying trip to Bologna in 1996. Whitney's hands moved to her own face. Whitney, the photograph on the south wall is me, age 36, standing with James Beard at his house in New York. He told me that night I'd outlive his name. He was wrong about the timing. Hannah's shoulders dropped a half inch. I'm on a flight to Sicily where I have been invited to teach for 3 months at a culinary institute affiliated with the James Beard Foundation. I am also, as of last Friday, the recipient of the Foundation's Who of Food and Beverage in America, Class of 2026. The press release is Tuesday. Tyler put his hand over his mouth. The bill is yours. The card on file has been removed. I will not be paying. Marco's voice softened by 1 degree. Joseph asked me to wear the apron. I am wearing it. Find me when you are ready. Mom. He folded the letter. He set it gently on the linen beside Whitney's plate. The room did not move. The kitchen door opened a 3rd time. Antonio Russo walked out in his white chef's coat. He was 51 years old, an inch shorter than his Uncle Joseph had been at the same age, with the same dark eyes and the same way of holding his hands loose at his sides. He crossed the dining room. He stopped at Whitney's chair. His voice was quiet, but it carried, "Excuse me. I am Antonio Russo. I am the chef and owner of this restaurant. I am also Joseph Pickett's nephew." He looked at Tyler, "Which would make you my cousin." Tyler did not breathe. "Welcome to the Sarah Pickett Room. The room is named for the woman who founded this restaurant in 1989 with my uncle. She taught me the meaning of fondness. Fondness for what you cook and fondness for who you cook it for." He turned his head a 1/4 inch toward Whitney. She owned 25% of this dining room until last Friday. As of Friday, she has agreed to sell to me. The proceeds of the sale, every dollar, will fund the Joseph Pickett Scholarship for first-generation immigrant chefs, which I have been quietly administering on her behalf for 5 years. He paused. He let it settle in the air. Tonight, she sends her regards from the airport. She is flying to teach in my village Modica, Sicily, where my uncle was born. He turned, walked 2 steps toward the kitchen, stopped, turned back. He looked Hannah in the eyes, then Tyler, then Whitney. "Did she never tell you?" The silence was longer than the letter had been. A man at table 4 began to clap once slowly. Stopped. The room was not that kind of room. The clap died. Eileen Green stood up. Eileen Green walked across the dining room with the deliberate pace of a woman who had decided at 78 that she no longer hurried for anyone. She stopped at Hannah's chair. Her hand rested briefly on the back of the empty seat at the head of the table. "You're Sarah's daughter, Hannah," the color all the way out of her face. "Yes. I've been a customer of your mother since 1986. I sat at the table she set on opening night in this dining room in December 1989. Your father refilled my wine. Your mother catered my wedding in 1995. She refused to charge me when my fiancé died 9 days before the ceremony." Hannah's voice cracked. "He died. You didn't know that either." Eileen turned, walked back to her own table without raising her voice. Harrison Harrington stood up next, 73 years old, his knees stiff. He took 30 seconds to cross the room. He looked at his daughter Whitney first, then at Tyler. "Tyler, your father saved my life in 1995 when I was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. He sat with me at the back booth here 2 nights a week for 6 months. He refused to take my money. He fed me when I could not eat." Whitney was crying without sound. Harrison turned to her. "Your mother said something foolish at a dinner in 2018, Whitney. I should have corrected her." "I did not. I am sorry." He addressed the room. "Sarah Pickett fed this city for 30 years. I owe her my life." He walked back. He sat down. The front door of the restaurant opened. Maria Russo Green walked in. 52 years old, hair the color of Joseph's, at the same age. She had driven up from Charleston that afternoon with no luggage. She walked to the table. She looked at Hannah. She looked at Tyler. "Zia is my family. You were too." Past tense. Tyler tried his MX Platinum decline. He had been carrying $93,000 in pending charges. Closing costs furniture for the new place, a deposit on a Tesla. The Ottaway had bounced 2 days earlier when the refinance proceeds came in late. He had not told Whitney. Whitney tried her joint card decline. Hannah tried her personal card approved for $1,800. Short. Greg Bell tried his approved for $1,447 short. Beatrice Harrington opened her handbag. She handed Marco an American Express Centurion card. Her voice was level. "Please." It cleared in 9 seconds. Whitney was crying. Hannah was rigid in her chair, both hands flat on the table. Caleb stood up. He had been filming since Marco set the folio down. He had captured every word. He had not interrupted. He walked to Antonio. He held out his hand. Antonio took it. Caleb spoke first. "Sir, my grandfather Joseph taught my grandmother to cook." Antonio answered without smiling. "Your grandmother taught your grandfather." Caleb nodded once. "Thank you." He walked past his own mother. He did not look at her. He walked out the front door of La Cucina de Vita with his phone in his hand. Hannah's voice behind him. "Caleb." He paused at the doorway. He looked back over his shoulder. "I'll call Grandma when she lands." Then he was gone. He called an Uber to the airport. He sat at gate B12, my gate 6 hours empty by then, and edited the video on his phone. He uploaded it at 11:17 p.m. with a single caption. "My grandmother. Did she never tell you?" By the time my plane landed in Frankfurt at 7:40 a.m. local time, the video had 400,000 views. By Tuesday afternoon, when the James Beard press release dropped, it had 4.2 million. Katana Airport Monday, 11:35 a.m. local time. I stepped off the jet bridge. The Sicilian air came up the corridor. Warm, faintly mineral salted from the Ionian. Salvatore was waiting at the arrivals hall. Joseph's cousin, 74 years old, linen shirt, white hair brushed back. He was holding a small piece of cardboard he had hand-lettered with a marker. Sarah Pickett. He saw me and his face broke into the smile I had seen on Joseph's face the day we got married. I walked to him. He kissed both my cheeks. He took the handle of my suitcase. "Zia, he waited for you 64 years. "I know, Salvo." I turned my phone on. 47 messages waited. I opened only Caleb's. "Grandma, I love you. I filmed it. I'll send it." "Mom is angry." "I don't care." I typed back one sentence. "Drive carefully." The apron came with me. Salvatore drove me to Modica. 3 hours coastal road, then the climb into the Ablian Mountains. We stopped once for coffee in Noto. He did not ask me any questions. The house was on Via del Carmina, number 12. Stone walls, iron gate, a lemon tree in the courtyard, exactly the size Joseph had said it would be. I stood in the courtyard for a long time. The light was the gold of late afternoon in early May. I touched a lemon on the lower branch. The skin was warm. Inside the suitcase upstairs were the apron, the photograph, and my grandmother's recipe book. All three in one place. For the first time since 1991, I went inside the house. I opened the suitcase. I put on the apron. I stood in the kitchen. I was home. 7 weeks later, Caleb's video had been seen 4.8 million times. Severe had reprinted the 1991 article on their homepage. Eater Atlanta had run a feature titled, "How a Quiet Woman Outlived an Insult." The James Beard Foundation press release had landed on Tuesday, May 14th, as promised. Sarah Pickett, class of 2026, lifetime achievement. Hannah's marketing agency in Charlotte lost 2 anchor clients within 31 days. One of them was the wife of a James Beard board member. Hannah's salary fell 22%. She was removed from a national award nomination she had been counting on for 2 years. Tyler's colleagues at Mission Hospital were quietly polite. He retreated. Whitney filed for marital counseling in June to protect the marriage. They separated in November 2027. Whitney lost the presidency of Junior League Asheville on June 6, 20,126. Catherine Green tabled the motion. The vote was 11-2. Harrison Harrington wrote me a letter on cream stationery and mailed it to Modica through Antonio. He asked permission to visit. I wrote back 3 weeks later, "Come in October. Bring Caleb if you can." Caleb enrolled at Asheville Buncombe Technical College in the culinary program in the fall semester of 2026. I paid the tuition directly. Hannah did not speak to him for 7 months. He moved out of her house in August and lived in my old house in Biltmore Forest until his classes started. Maria Russo Green sent him a knife set on his first day. The Joseph Pickett Scholarship was endowed at $2 million with the closing of the buyout. It funds full tuition at the Culinary Institute of America for 4 first-generation immigrant chefs per year. Antonio chairs the board. I serve on it from Sicily. I taught 3 months in Modica that summer. I wore the apron my mother had sent me in 1989 every day. The students from 12 countries called me Zia. In late July, I wrote 3 letters and sent them by registered mail to Asheville. 1 to Hannah, 1 to Tyler, 1 to Whitney. Each one was a single sentence. You are welcome at the restaurant on weekdays as paying guests. Hannah did not respond. Tyler responded twice. I read both letters. I did not write back. Whitney did not respond. Caleb came to Modica for the month of August. I'm 71 years old. I spent 46 of those years convincing my children I was small enough to be carried in their pocket. I was never small. They were never carrying me. The day a woman stops translating herself for the people who refuse to read, that is the day she becomes herself again. Modica has lemon trees. I have a name. The rest will find me, or it won't. That's my story. 1 restaurant, 1 apron, 1 letter. The captain read aloud to a quiet room. If this reminded you that your name was carved somewhere before you forgot it, take that as a sign. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.